So this is our first official episode that I'm going to be basically titling Stupid Proposed Bills of the Day, or maybe I should say week. Now, I'm hoping to make this kind of a regular feature for future shows, particularly during the legislative session. And since the Washington State Legislature just started their session just this week, it really does seem timely and appropriate to do this now. Now, first, I'm just going to give you a little disclaimer. In Washington State, pretty much during every legislative session, thousands of bills are proposed. In fact, some of them roll over from the previous session because it's essentially a two-year session. So you have to expect that a few thousand bills are proposed, but only a few hundred of those actually become law. And most of the bills that do become law are kind of the relatively minor ones. Of course, some are exceptionally bad. And if I were to actually have to explain all these stupid proposed bills every single legislative session, it would actually take just many, many hours, and it would consume all of our time. Nobody can actually accuse our legislators, particularly the Democrats, of either reading their bills, understanding what they do, or knowing what the heck they're actually doing when they show up to the legislative session in January. So I really can't cover all the stupid bills and foolish and ignorant politicians who claim to sponsor them. However, I can try to cover a few that just happened to catch my eye this week. And many of those, remember, will not become law. Please, please, please remember that. Every legislative session, normal people panic when they hear about the insane and the corrupt ideas that are proposed by these legislators. So please, please, again, I'm going to say it again, just please understand, most of the time, these don't actually become law. Because any clown essentially can toss a dumb idea into the circus of the legislature. But that doesn't mean that the dumb idea gets out of the circus tent. Now, of course, sometimes they do. So that's really why we want to expose the crazier ones when we can. And I'm only going to mention three of them today. So first, let's just get into it. Let's talk about House Bill 2150. This was a Democrat-sponsored bill by a federal way legislator, Christine Reeves, and it would essentially create a framework for Democrats and political hacks to remove political opponents from the ballot if they don't like them. It's kind of sort of like what Putin does in Russia or what they do in countries like Venezuela and Zimbabwe. This bill is obviously anti-democratic, but so is Washington State's Democratic Party, so it really should be no surprise. Mostly, this is just a dumb, unconstitutional idea that has gained traction with the Orange Man Bad crowd, and I'm sure Representative Reeves wanted a cool article in The Stranger or the Seattle Times, and who can really tell the difference? And of course, this is a pretty cheap way just to get that attention. Now, isn't it funny that almost every legislator or politician in Washington State today with a D next to their name, that they all pretend to care about democracy with a big D, and yet they seem addicted to attacking every aspect of democracy every time that they show their true colors. They don't like the initiative process now when they don't like the initiatives that the people happen to place on the ballot, especially the 6 this year. The Democrats don't like voting when they don't win, so they just want to remove the candidates that they don't like. They certainly don't like free speech, which is why they support censorship. And speaking of censorship, let's get to my next stupid bill of the week. And this one is House Bill 1333. This is creating the Domestic Violent Extremist Commission, and this one was originally invented by Attorney General Bob Ferguson, currently running for governor. He invented this one last year, and is currently sponsored by almost all the Democrats in the state house. This essentially creates Washington State's own Ministry of Truth, and it's kind of an effort to make sure that Orwell's 1984 is no longer fiction. Well, the Democrats were widely mocked nationally by anybody with even a passing familiarity with the concept of free speech. The Washington State Democrat Party is really determined to be the party of George Orwell's darkest vision for our future. And they're, of course, doubling down on dumb with this proposal. Now, there are some spin-off ideas that both Bob Ferguson and Secretary of State Steve Hobbs might try to implement that essentially get to the same goal of silencing all independent thought in Washington State. After all, they have to protect the narrative. But we'll discuss those more in the future. Now, this bill died last year, and it should die a widely mocked legislative death again this year. Now, finally, my last dumb bill for this year that I'm going to cover today is HB 1268. It's actually been sponsored by Democrat Roger Goodman. And this is just another rollover bill from the 2023 session that would help encourage violent criminals to use guns when committing their violent crimes by eliminating, essentially, any sentence enhancements for violent criminals who commit crimes with guns. Now, the absurd part of this really is that the reason why you have these enhancements is to discourage criminals from committing violent crimes with guns in the first place. And Roger Goodman wants to remove that. And this kind of reminds me of the widely mocked Democrat bill from 2022 that tried to eliminate drive-by shooting enhancements in an effort to encourage more drive-by shooting. Now, that bill was widely mocked around the nation. And Roger Goodman continues to demonstrate how unserious he is about reducing violent crime in our community, and in fact appears to prove to everyone in Washington state that he will do everything he can to make our state certainly a safe space for violent criminals to kill and hurt people. Now that's it for today's Dumb Bills of the Week. There are many more I can add to this list, of course, but this is it for now. And remember, if you think I've missed one, why don't you add that dumb bill list down in the comments section below. Now, remember, you have to sign in and you have to tell the legislators when you see one of these bills that you oppose their insanity and the dumb, destructive bills like these and others that the worst politicians in the state seem to always want to propose. Remember, when we elect clowns like these guys to public office, we really shouldn't be surprised that we have to deal with a dangerous circus. It's okay to mock and laugh at these clowns, but we also are obligated to share the truth about their harmful antics to everyone you can. So I've linked to the bills down below in the video description area. You check them out for yourself, and you can email your opinion to everyone there. Make it clear that you think what you actually think about these dumb, foolish, and very clownish ideas. I always say that the future belongs to those who show up. If we fail to show up, only the clowns like the politicians who propose these bills will be there. And that scenario isn't good for our future. So continue to show up and push back on the clowns.